There's some national media out there who are selling stock on Arkansas as a contender this season. Are the red flags warranted? Let's take a look.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. I am Curtis Wilgerson here with you this afternoon to talk a little Razorback basketball. And yes, football is in the air, but in Fayetteville, basketball is always in the air. We're getting closer and closer to the start of full practices for the Razorbacks, which means media days coming around. And we're going to start getting to know this team a little bit more and more. And before you know it, we'll be in October and they'll be scrimmaging Kansas, right? So everybody's excited about that. But it has been interesting because I think everybody is excited about this Razorback team, at least those around the state who are following the program in John Calipari's first year. But I've noticed lately that there are some national media members who respect Arkansas, see them as an NCAA tournament team, but might be selling on the Hogs as contenders. And you wonder why that's the case. Well, I've identified two different things that have kind of been raised as red flags. And we're going to dive into them and see, I don't know, just how valid we think those are, if it's something that we should have our eye on moving forward. The first thing that's been interesting to me is hearing all the talk about continuity. I listen to a lot of college basketball podcasts. Anything that I can get my eyes on to read or my ears on to listen to, I follow that. A lot of talk about a lack of continuity being a thing that could hold Arkansas back. A big reason for that is because if you go and look around college basketball last season, teams that had first-year coaches or teams that had big roster flips with 6, 7 or more transfers really struggle in a lot of cases. Arkansas is one of those teams. I think they were one of a handful of teams that had more than 7 transfers. I think only one of them made the NCAA tournament. Arkansas was not one of those teams. So is continuity a concern? Because if you go look or listen, you hear a lot of folks saying, well, Trevin Brazile is the only returner on this Razorback roster. Okay. Technically, that's true. All right. That's true. But I do think it lacks a lot of context, right? I think it ignores some of the key factors there. It's a little bit of a lazy take, in my opinion. Now, there's going to be a lot of new faces and everybody's going to be in new places. But John Calipari brought some of his dudes over here. Would we be having the same conversation about a lack of continuity for Arkansas for John Calipari if he was still at Kentucky and he had DJ Wagner back and a Duthiero back and Big Z back in the fold and then was bringing in, the 5-star freshman and had some big time guys out of the transfer portal? Probably not. And so he says all the time that nothing has changed but the headquarters. And that's kind of how I view this. So when I look at Arkansas, I choose to look at it from a standpoint of returners to Calipari and not so much returners to Arkansas because, Big Z, Duthiero, DJ Wagner, those are all guys who have played a lot of games and a lot of minutes for John Calipari, for this coaching staff. There's familiarity already there. There's a culture that's already established that those guys understand. And so, yeah, they're going to be sleeping in a different dorm room. They're going to be eating in different restaurants. They're going to be practicing in a different gym and playing in Bud Walton Arena for home games to sit a rup. But a lot of it's still the same. It's just it's a different jersey. So the whole continuity thing, I think, is a little bit overblown from that standpoint. And secondly, are we really worried about that with John Calipari, of all coaches? I mean, I don't know. He sends a half dozen guys to the league every single year, and he brings in 7-man freshman classes, and his teams are always good, always competitive. The concerns about, his teams at Kentucky were about being a little bit too young and not being able to get over the hump in the NCAA tournament, or, is Cal not adapting his ways? Is he not getting up with the times of modern basketball? Is the game passed him by? Whatever. But it's never really been about continuity. So I don't know that that's a big factor here. Personally, you got 3 guys who played a ton for you last year. You have a Kareem Watkins who's a walk-on, but a guy who's been a part of the program. So a pretty strong foundation that's laid there. You have 3 5-star freshmen coming in who are all set to play for John Calipari, which means those relationships are built and strong with him and the coaching staff. They've watched a ton of basketball that's been coached by Cal. They have relationships with the three guys who have come over from Kentucky with him. I just think there's not as much to it maybe as some people are making it out to be. I would understand that in a lot of cases, or if Cal was here and he just brought in a bunch of dudes that he's not familiar with, but that's not really what's going on here. And so I'm not as concerned about that. And maybe I'm naive, maybe I should be, but it's not something that bothers me too much. I mean, think about Kentucky. What did they have back last year? Antonio Reeves was back for him. Thiero obviously was back for him. He's in his third year now. Ugana Kingsley, the big man, was back for a second year. But who else? Am I missing anybody else in terms of returners for him last year? So it almost feels like he has as much continuity at Arkansas in year one as he did at Kentucky last season. He's got as much continuity at Arkansas in year one as Muss did at Arkansas in year 5. Pretty much. I mean, how many returners did Muss have last season? Let's think about this for a second. Devo, Mekhi Mitchell, Trevin Brazile. Obviously, he was injured but was back, so it's 3 and 3. Jalen Graham. Okay, so I guess he had 4, and Cal's got 3. If you count Kareem Watkins as a walk-on, it's kind of the same there. So I don't know. I think when you talk about continuity, it's all about it. To me, it's guys who are new to each other, who aren't familiar with each other, who haven't played with each other, and it takes time to build that chemistry to get things going, right? I just think Arkansas's got a little bit of a head start with that, with the same faces on the coaching staff, and then you've got 3 guys, and it's not just 3 randos, but 3 dudes who have really been a part of Kentucky's culture and then played a lot of big minutes under Cal. And then you're kind of adding to that and supplementing that. So I don't think that learning curve or that chemistry building curve is going to be necessarily as large for Arkansas under John Calipari this season as it will be for some other places that are having first-year coaches. You know, like Pat Kelsey, for example, at Louisville. That's a different situation. He might have brought one or I don't know how many guys he brought over from Charleston. I don't think it was much, but he's got a ton of new faces on that roster. That's a little bit of a different situation. Dusty May over at Michigan. I know he's got Vlad Golden, Nellie Davis's old teammate, but outside of that, it's a ton of new faces that are in there, transfers, freshmen, and the like. That is a different situation than I think what Calipari is dealing with at Arkansas. So if you're looking for reasons to sell stock on the Hogs as a contender, I don't know that I necessarily agree that this is a good one to hang your hat on. Maybe they'll have some struggles over the course of the season, but I'm not sure that this is going to be a reason why that would be the case. Oh, man. It's Monday, folks, and for me, that means I got a big to-do list on the plate, on the docket, and sometimes you need a little bit of a boost to get through it, especially after a weekend of college football and the NFL season starting. But the good news is 5-Hour Energy fixes tired fast, and whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of do-it-yourself projects to tackle at home, I know the wife gives me a lot of honeydews around here. Just take a 5-Hour Energy shot so you can check off everything on your list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects for the home. When you get your supplies for the project, don't forget the most essential supply, which is a 5-Hour Energy shot. I mean, think about it. Watching sports over the weekend, that can wear you out. If you were up late last night watching Sunday Night Football, if you're going to be up late tonight watching Monday Night Football, you might need a boost in the morning. Some people go for coffee. I go for 5-Hour Energy. Just grab a 5-Hour Energy shot to stay alert and watch all your favorite games. Or it can kind of give you a boost if you were up late watching your favorite team play the night before. With 0 sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore. Think about it. Watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. You should try them all. And on the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. If you buy in bulk like I do, this is a pretty good option. Just to choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. Now, if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy product today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders, but go to 5hourenergy.com today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off of your next order. All right, getting back at it here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. We're talking about just some of the concerns, the red flags that we've seen from some national media members. Just in terms of, I think a lot of us are drinking that Razorback Kool-Aid, that John Calipari Kool-Aid. It can be sweet at times, and Kentucky fans have been burned because of that in recent years. So why are the people who are looking at this from a 40,000-foot viewpoint maybe have a little bit of pause about the Razorbacks, because it's hard for us who are so entrenched in it to not be anything other than super, super excited about what's going on. We talked about continuity, lack of it. I'm not buying that as an issue for the Hogs. The other thing that I've seen a lot lately that's interesting to me um, does Arkansas have too many alphas in the backcourt? And I've heard some specific talk a few different times. The Field of 68 with Goodman, Douster, and I know I talk about those guys a lot because they've got some hot takes that I don't always necessarily agree with, but I thought they had some interesting dialogue about this. And I heard Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish talking about it on the Ion College Basketball podcast, two guys I respect a ton. And so it's really got me thinking about it. But the dynamic between DJ Wagner and Nellie Davis in the backcourt, and they're both obviously really, really good players, but how are they going to be able to share the backcourt together? Because they're two guards. It's not just that they're wired to score, but they both thrive with the ball in their hands. And so when you think about that, two guys who need to have the ball in their hands, how does that look? Does the offense get clunky? Does it lack rhythm? What is the spacing like? What's the ball movement like? Is it a your turn, my turn in terms of who's taking the shots? So I get that to agree. Like I understand the sentiment there. I think this is more valid than the continuity thing, at least to the point where, yeah, I've got my eye on it. That's something I'm going to watch early on. I'm not overly concerned about it because teams all over the country have two really good guards who like to have the rock in their hands. It's not a new or a foreign concept, and it's not like it hasn't worked at times in the past. You just kind of have to look at the background of these guys and make your own judgment. And then we'll see how it plays out when the season comes around. But Nellie Davis, when I think about him, I think about a guy who was a sixth man on a Final Four team. And now he led that team in scoring, but to me, that shows a sacrifice and a willingness to be a team player on a really good team, sacrificing for the greater cause, right? And when I watch those FAU teams, even last year when they made it to the NCAA tournament and they lost, but they had all those guys who came back because they wanted to continue to play together. That was a group that was really kind of it was a one unit situation. Good chemistry. They shared it. But I think there was an understanding that Nellie was the guy, the go-to guy. So when they needed somebody to go get a bucket, it was him. I think it's going to be the case with Arkansas too. And I think he's a guy who obviously is going to want to get his shots up because he wants to get to the league and improve his draft stock. That's why he's gone from a place like FIU, no disrespect, to Arkansas. That's okay. That doesn't make you a selfish player. You look at DJ Wagner, it's not like he's new to sharing a backcourt with talent, right? I mean, you can yell at Cal all you want to about starting him over Reed Shepherd and Rob Dillingham, but he was still sharing the load with those guys and Antonio Reeves. That's a lot of mouths to feed in a backcourt. In many ways, this roster at Arkansas, I think, opens the door for DJ to have more freedom because, yeah, you're going to be sharing the backcourt with Nellie Davis, but outside of that, it's freshmen who are really talented, but Boogie Fland, I don't know that he's going to be a, number 2 overall pick or whatever Reed Shepherd was. Younger guys, Carter Knox, Billy Richmond, super talented guys. But I think with a year under his belt, this is a situation where DJ Wagner could be a clear, number 2 option in the backcourt. And that's okay. Because, yeah, I think some sacrifice is going to have to be involved here. Like there's middle ground to be had. But it's not like these two guys or John Calipari, for that matter, who has a roster full of NBA talent that's looking for shots every year. This is not uncharted waters for anybody. So I think it's something that they're going to be able to navigate, but you got to see how it plays out. So I understand this is a little bit more valid maybe than some of the other reasons why people might have a little bit of pause, So when I think about it with this Arkansas team, I think about it from a standpoint of the answer to me is that DJ Wagner probably needs to find a little bit more balance. I think that's where it starts. Find a little bit more balance if you're DJ between being a scorer and being a playmaker, right? If DJ Wagner could embrace being the Robin to Nellie Davis's Batman, then I think Arkansas is really in business, because it's a situation to where, maybe he's not taking quite as many shots, but he's getting more assists. He's being a more well-rounded playmaker, is a huge factor on the team. Maybe he's a little bit more efficient than as a shooter. And it's going to take some pressure off of him as well if he does that. And I think he has an understanding of what he needs to do to get to the league. And I think becoming more well-rounded, not just kind of a bully guard who's a volume shot taker who pounds the ball into the hardwood. I think that could really help him in terms of his draft stock. But I'll give credit where credit is due on that one. That's at least something that I'm gonna monitor as the Razorbacks get into some preseason stuff and some scrimmages, and obviously the early games as we get into the season. All right, folks, I want to talk to you a little bit about our friends over at Ibotta. Sandal, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? Well, you've probably been buying them a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Just use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all of your summer essentials. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure that you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, the flight that you've been eyeing for a vacation, a fancy dinner you've been craving to take the wife out and wine and dine her a little bit. It all helps there. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores like Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. All right, everybody, back for the final segment here, the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. Just wanted to kind of maybe rock through some odds and ends that have been going on, some things that are coming up on the horizon, some cool things that have happened out there that I've noticed. The first thing is like recruiting season is in full effect, right? Obviously, this is going to be a big visit weekend for Arkansas, and we're going to preview that here on the Pod at the Palace probably on Friday, because Razorbacks are going to have multiple 5-stars on campus for this UAB football game the weekend. It's going to be exciting. You talk about Koa Pete, Malik Thomas, guys that we've discussed quite a bit as John Calipari tries to build out this freshman class. It's got the chance to be really, really good. And we're talking rivaling, maybe those top 10 or top 1 or 2 classes that Eric Musselman has put together in recent seasons. So excited to see what happens there. Like I said, we'll preview that. But the thing that happened last week was we kind of had the door open up for college coaches to get back out on the road and get in the gym and see some of these prospects in person. And that's always a good thing. It helps you, if you're following recruiting, to kind of determine who is really being prioritized, right? If your head coach is hitting the gym, he's getting on a plane, going to some random high school, chances are you're actually really interested in the kid. I know under Muss, we saw a lot of hollow offers, like maybe they offer a kid, but they're not really interested or not really recruiting them. Sometimes you'll see, people who drop a list of a top 8 or whatever, and your school's not even really actively pursuing those guys. Well, when you see what gyms your coaches are in, that kind of gives you a better idea of who they're actually pursuing, right? And they've been out there to see all the usual suspects, man. Malik Thomas, Caleb Wilson, all those guys. And that's going to continue to happen. And the entire coaching staff who's able to get on the road has been out and about. But I love seeing Coach Cal out on the road, because you see pictures, of coaches in the gym. Maybe they're at early morning workouts or shoot arounds, checking in on some of these recruits. And man, you see a lot of quarter zips out there. You see a lot of basketball shorts out there. But you ain't going to miss Coach Cal, because he's suited and booted from head to toe. I absolutely love that. It's the Hog Father, man. It's literally a statement made via dress code. When he walks in there suited up, he means business. And, like he said in the past, you can recruit a guy as long as you want, but if John Calipari wants to swoop in and get him in the end, he's going to do that. He's a power player who makes power moves, and he's walking around in power suits recruiting these kids. I absolutely love seeing some of those pictures, and he's been mixing it up. I know some people were upset early on because he had a lot of blue in that wardrobe, and he had a nice little off red suit that he was rocking the other day. Looks pretty sharp, man. I'm not going to lie. And they've actually given him some Arkansas Razorbacks gear now outside of that one pullover that he had. So he's diversifying the wardrobe a little bit. And I think Razorback fans appreciate that. But it's cool to see. And speaking of, the recruiting front of things, you guys see that tweet that came out? It got me in the middle of one of our live shows where I was thinking, hold up, did Arkansas the Razorback basketball just get a commit? What's going on? And it turns out, because Coach Cal was tagged in it, so I get notifications for that. Well, it turns out it was a 5-star tennis recruit that Arkansas has signed. And it literally said, after a meeting with John Calipari, so-and-so 5-star, top tennis prospect has committed to Arkansas. So it doesn't matter the sport. Coach Cal's just out there getting 5 stars. I absolutely love it, though. And this is a good idea. I like when programs do this. I like the idea of, just kind of promoting all of your sports. And, if you're a basketball recruit, yeah, take them around, let them meet the football staff or whatever. This kind of reminds me of Nate Oates. He used to do this where he would take recruits to see Nick Saban. This is before Alabama got good at basketball. And that's a selling point, right? It absolutely is. I wonder if, you don't think Duke football is taking their recruits to meet Coach K, back in the day? Or if like Kansas football, would you not take him in there to meet Bill Self, a national championship Hall of Famer type of coach? So I like this, man. I think it's pretty cool. Was happy to see that. It only adds to the aura of John Calipari at Arkansas. So some pretty good stuff. But I think it's going to do it for us today. Appreciate everybody tuning in as always. This has been Curtis Wilkerson with the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition, and we will be back with you Wednesday afternoon. Everybody have a good one.